All right. Hello, folks. Welcome to our session called Creative Responses to Letters to Santa using Azure OpenAI. This is part of the Festive Tech Calendar 2023. I'm Chris Gill, and I brought my partner and cohort here, Abdul Kazi. Abdul,
Hey
feel free
guys.
to introduce yourself.
Yeah, as Chris said, my name is Abdul Kazi. I've been in the IT industry for almost 20 years now. Um, Fairly focused on Azure, have some AWS experience as well. And then I, along with Chris, am the co-host for Come Cloud with Us. So if you guys are looking to speak, you're always looking for speakers. So, you know, have at it. And you can always follow me on Twitter, which is X now, and then my blog post, which I usually have somewhat, things about Azure or Office 365. So yeah, and then back to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you. So, thank you for the warm welcome. I'm Chris Gill. Couple things on the screen, but really, truly, I'm just passionate about having fun with tech. That's what brought us here today. So, honest to goodness, I've been in the industry for 20 some years. We won't talk. I think I'm just going to leave it at 20 and not update that for a while. So, um, but same deal. Doing Come Cloud with Us. Big part of the community. Just trying to help people figure stuff out. The more I find I like help people, they tend to just come back and help me with a bunch of stuff too. So great to be in the space. Thank you to the coordinators for this event, kind of giving us this platform to just bring you some fun content. So with that said, what is our session really, really, truly about? Well, I want to start by at least giving a couple resources. For folks who've been, playing with this stuff for a while, let's be honest, it was November 2022 at least, where, ChatGPT kind of came out. Everybody was toying for over the past year now. Microsoft took that a step further and did, Azure OpenAI. The resources that are on the screen right now, the first link is basically that application. If you haven't yet, you have to apply to Microsoft and get Azure OpenAI available for your tenant. So some rules of engagement: have a tenant for your own personal use or whatever else, or a tenant that maybe you have for work, or it's an MVP, but you got to apply for that first. So Microsoft reviews it. They will let you know when you're in, and then you can go and set up resources in your environment. Most of the stuff we're going to be talking about today and showing live demo, cringeworthy, but we take the risks. So that's why we have fun with this stuff. Azure OpenAI Studio is where we'll be most of our time today. That gives us just the ability to kind of go load code approach. So it gets you familiar with the stuff. You don't have to know a lot of development or a lot of coding. You just have to know how to set resources up and kind of tie things together. So that's the third resource, how to tie all this stuff together. A lot of the things that we're doing today, this third resource here goes into a little bit more depth on how to really get started with ChatGPT and OpenAI. But yeah, as always, as Abdul mentioned earlier, please reach out if you have any questions, after we're done with the session or whatever else. We're always on social. We're always happy to take a DM or, any kind of reach to just kind of ask us questions and get you started on this stuff.
So Chris, a
Um,
couple of
yeah,
questions, I guess, for the folks who are watching. They might be thinking, how do we get started? Is there a cost to this? Because
yeah,
cloud always comes with consumption and cost, and they're always hidden costs. So talk to us about, the cost and what people can expect.
absolutely. Um, just getting started with stuff. So, say you got approved, you're in Azure OpenAI environment. Just like ChatGPT, there's like ChatGPT Plus. You can kind of do this. Um, they offer it for a premium a month, so it's like a $20 a month type of approach. With Azure OpenAI, it's more about consumption. So it's very similar to just other Azure resources. You're buying tokens and other things. So if you like today, we'll show a little bit of tying into a storage account and utilizing documents inside of a storage account. Those would also be some cost involved with utilizing storage, reading, writing to the storage array, indexing, so on and so forth. So There is cost associated with it. Depends on how much you use. If you put 100,000 documents in there, it's going to spike a little bit. For our demo, don't tell anybody, we put 4 documents in there. Kept it simple. 4 documents won't break the bank. But yeah, there still will be some cost, depending on how many times you run through the demo or how much preparation you do for stuff like this. So, good question.
No, that's very good. And one thing to add is do not forget to turn it off, because since this is consumption based, a lot of people think, hey, I'm done and I'm done. No, you need to bring the environment down.
Right. And remind me to circle back. So when we're going through some of the, and it's a preview feature right now, but when you tie it to your own storage, there are options to say how often do I, or how frequently do I update? Is it once? Is it hourly? Is it daily? So remind me to go back to that. If I don't, we can show folks how to kind of navigate that. So good point. Other questions?
No, I think let's get into this next slide.
Sweet. All right. So we'll do a little bit of something different here. I'm presuming that most folks in the space at least have some experience with either ChatGPT or Azure OpenAI. But things that I've been getting asked as part of my work, as part of the community efforts, it seems to be tripping a lot of folks up. There's just a lot of confusion around a couple terms. So one of the things we want to just poke on, or in Microsoft terms, double click on, is temperature. So one of the things in Azure OpenAI or even ChatGPT or any of these platforms, in GPT in general, is this basically a slider or a value that's called temperature. The temperature really, at the end of the day, just controls the randomness of the responses. So as you're going through and prompting the system, it just means that you've got maybe less or more repetitive responses. It gives a little bit of a consistency, but it also could affect like how creative or unexpected the responses are too. For instance, one of the things we'll show is setting a system message. So we set up this information. We tell the system how to respond and how to kind of consume what we're asking, but this temperature, in accordance with that system message, kind of gives us either a little bit more creativity, gets a little cute, gets a little snarky, whatever else, but it also sometimes comes with a little bit of unexpectedness too. All right. The second term, and again, we see these kind of co-located, that temperature versus top P or probabilities. So top probabilities, again, similar to that temperature control, and that it has a similar randomness, but it also, at the end of the day, it adjusts that token selection to something that's just a little bit more likelier to happen. So it's a little more intuitive, a little bit of an understanding of it's like, what are we prompting for? What's the system message set to? And it will objectively go and reach and say, this is more of a likelier token, and this is a more likelier response. So higher probability, I'm going to match that up and return that type of information back to the person who's prompting, or the system that's prompting. One of the tips I want to mention: when you're doing this work, don't adjust both. Try to adjust one at a time, but don't adjust both. So here, one of the demo things, you'll notice that we've adjusted temperature, but we haven't touched top P at all. Temperature just kind of gave me a little bit more of a, I hate to say fine tuning, but it was just a little bit of a tuning to give a little bit of a better response to what we're trying to achieve. So,
but isn't top P though more, I don't want to say base, but very like dependent on the model as well, right? Like as the model switches or changes, or you tweak the model, doesn't the top P also adjust accordingly, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And it's a good thing to call out now too. What we've done in this demo is focused on ChatGPT or GPT-4. So we're using exclusively GPT-4, but yes, if we were to switch models out behind the scenes to a different deployment, that top P would adjust and affect those models as well too. good call out. All right. We're at a 10-minute mark. This is about where I wanted to be with slides. Honest to goodness, it's just demo time for us. So we're going to try and work through this. The brain's in the cloud sometimes, but we'll work through it. So just to kind of set the pace, we're going to go into Azure OpenAI Studio. We'll introduce Chat Playground and some of the settings that are there. We'll go into that configuration for how we're using our own data to kind of work with the model. I work with ChatGPT or Azure OpenAI GPT in this regard. Then we'll kind of show some of the bang for the buck. So we're going to take at least those 4 letters that we put in our storage blob. We'll generate some responses, letters to Santa. We'll actually have letters from Santa back to the other folks. And then if any of you are, having some eggnog next to us, that would be awesome. You can join us in that. We don't have it. We got to be good to give in the session. We don't want to fall off of our virtual platforms here. So, so with that said, let's hope and pray that all of this works. So we're in Azure OpenAI Studio. And again, you could do oai.azure.com. There are also a few other, probably at least 3 or 4 different links to get to it. We're going to say wait on this screen. But as you will notice, I have not used any system templates for this. We wanted to supply our own system message. And I'm just going to blow this up just a little bit more. And if it makes me refresh, that's fine. But so what we put in the system message was just kind of telling the system how we wanted it to respond. We mentioned that you're an AI assistant, that you're pretending to be Santa Claus, otherwise known as Saint Nick or Saint Nicholas. You're located in North Pole. You've got a bunch of employees, aka elves. Your toy maker, you have a wife named Mrs. Claus, a bunch of different crazy details. But we put some refiners on there. We said, well, you receive letters from all over the world. Some children are nice, some children are naughty, but you still find some magical way to give them appropriate presents. Each letter that we're going to read through requires a different response. And this year we're just asking to, our virtual Santa to kind of give us a creative response to those letters and find ways to give creative gifts. We have our page refreshed and system message is all set, ready to go. One of the things we talked about earlier, it was adding our own data. So I want to kind of show how this data source is set up and configured. And maybe I'll minimize just a hair so it fits better on the screen. So add a data source. In order to do that, I already have behind the scenes an Azure Blob storage account set up. My storage resource is called Santa ChatGPT, of course. Storage container, his letters to Santa. This was all some setup that I've already done behind the scenes, but I also have a search resource. Index name, I'll give it something simple like index Santa Chat GPT. There is a conflict, so we'll give it a 2. And then this is what we're talking about. So before, Abdul, you mentioned about storage costs, and I could do this as a one-time indexer. I can also set up as an hourly or a daily type of index. For this approach, really only need it to be once. As your data models and your actual data get larger and larger, you may want to set this to be like an hourly thing if you're still working with training or trying to figure out how the system really works. Otherwise, maybe a daily or just even a once run through once you're good to go is all it needs. So I'm going to set this to once. I'm going to acknowledge that, again, incur usage to my account. Usually anytime you see warning, you're incurring usage, that means warning, you're incurring spending of pennies from your pocket or dollars or whatever it may be. So
that's what we talked about already, right? Because Microsoft is going to charge you, and people get surprised that, oh, I did not sign up this, but there's all this fine print, and you got to be careful for those gotchas.
Yeah. So incur usage almost always translates to incur cost. So yeah, good stuff. So we're going to say next to this, and hopefully it just takes a few seconds to do what we need it to do. The search type will set keyword, and then we'll save and close. So this page just reviews all the settings that we chose, what we really want to run, and you'll see this ingestion in progress. So again, only 4 documents. I wanted to make sure that this didn't really time out on us or go bananas, but we should see this pre-processing change. It should tell us, hey, I see four artifacts that I need to start scanning through. Again, this is live, so once it picks up this 4, then it should start indexing our content as well.
And then once let's talk about the data injection. So I noticed coming from Azure data, you can bring your own from external sources. There's probably also bringing from AWS or other public clouds as well. So I guess wide variety of data sources you can bring in.
Yeah, and again, this is still a preview. I would expect it to expand over time for sure. But yeah, this is nice because I think a lot of folks, you're right, there's a lot of folks in the community just asking, it's like, well, this is all great and well and good, but how do I make sure that my data is still private, that it's still staying in, the places that I want it to stay in, data residency, maybe in different geos, different whatever geographic regions, maybe for different holds or whatnot, different encryption policies, you name it. So yeah. But yeah, from this perspective, I believe, at least when I saw, there was only Azure storage so far, but I expect that to change at some point. So in perfect timing, that gave us the opportunity to finish our indexing. So now we have an index built. We could go into advanced settings and it will show, some retrieved documents and strictness, just to kind of give us some limitations on how the data is accessed. But honest to goodness, at this point, it's like I know that I pulled those 4 docs in. Now I can go back to my system message. It's still here. Don't need to save any changes. And I'm going to ask and prompt, please create a letter format. Here we go. So, classic example of something was working great yesterday, and it's kind of questionable today, but that's fine. We'll do one by one. So I just happen to know that Matthew wrote Santa a nice letter here. So based on our system message, our Azure OpenAI instance went out and sent the ChatGPT, said, here, I am generating a letter. I hope this letter finds you well. Cute, a little bit of snarkiness. I'm proud of how you've been behaving, all this good stuff. Read through and said, hey, I saw what was on your wish list. I want to make sure that I do the best that I can to try and find some of the stuff. So keeping the, what the gifts really are quiet. But then there's that nice reminder to say, hey, look, take care of my reindeer if you don't mind while we're kind of doing this thing. Looking forward to visiting you, and we'll see, hope the Christmas spirit keeps alive. So let me generate one more. So say generate a letter for Chris. Now, as I was doing these documents, Abdul, I was a little saddened. I don't see where you wrote a letter to Santa this year. I'm a little disappointed. We've got to work on that for next year. But
yes, exactly.
So again, we told the system, hey, look, remember you're a toy maker, right? You're one of the busiest toy makers. So this kind of played true this time. So, hey, look, I'm taking a break from my busy toy making schedule. been watching, here's some gifts of the season, pulling out of that original letter that, hey, this Chris person did a couple cool things. Maybe it wasn't that Chris was just asking for some gifts. I think in this instance, Chris was asking for an AI book, surprise to no one. But that's what was pulled out of this, saying, hey, I saw that you've done some nice things to the community, whatever else, keep up the good work, spread the joy. And again, the reindeer keep coming out to play. I did not train it to do that. Thank you, ChatGPT, for making this a wonderful event. But reindeer, they got to be fed too. Cookies and milk for Santa. Reindeer, get their own carrots. So, yeah, pretty slick, right? So imagine running this against, I don't know, Abdul, like here in the U.S. we have, USPS, United States Parcel Service. In researching for this event, for this session, I didn't realize the USPS actually goes out and says, hey, we'll take on a bunch of letters to Santa, whoever they're addressed to, they all get coordinated. They get dumped into a system, and up until December 18th, community folks can go out and offer and just volunteer for responses to go and respond to letters and pretend that they're Santa and write something nice back. Pretty cool, but could you imagine if USPS had this system where they could go and say, look, I've gotten 500,000 letters and I need to respond to them pretty darn quickly.
Oh yeah.
To generate it. I didn't write any code. I just wrote, natural language into this. So deployment settings, I know this has been on the screen for the entire time, but this allows us to just go and say, I want to deploy it to new web app or directly to Power Virtual Agent Bot. I think this is funny because it should be updated to Copilot. So I'm sure it'll work at some point. But yeah, Virtual Agent or Copilot, same deal. So that'll get rebranded at some point. Parameters, as we were talking before, temperature, low temperature here. Primarily because I refreshed my page, but normally I would have had this set to something like 76 is where we were testing a good approach. So the 76, 78, that top P again, just left it be to that value of 1, but easy enough to kind of adjust. Other things I wanted to at least show playground settings. So some things I have yet to toy with, but Christmas break's coming up, something that I kind of want to teach myself and learn. I can utilize speech resources. So I do have a speech service set up, but I can utilize either speech to text or vice versa, that text back to speech. So pretty slick. I could go out and talk directly to the bot. I could go and talk to the system and generate, but it can also talk back to me. So pretty nice. Different voices that I can select and voice speeds. Looking forward to kind of playing with that. And
yeah, I was about to say about the code, right? Because I know a lot of people would be interested in the JSON file and see how that's going to integrate maybe in other platforms or other tooling they can use. So
right. So I love this, and thank you to the demo people, and thank you to Microsoft for thinking through some of this stuff, but they don't show you your search keys or whatever. For demo purposes, is fantastic. Honest to goodness, these are important things nowadays, right? Not even kidding. It's like secrets, search keys, all that stuff. It's just like a password. It is a password. So it's like that is a danger. Not showing it here and forcing people to go and update it in other means or ways. Awesome. But yeah, from this perspective, it's like I've got all the code in Python. I can change that from Python to JSON, C#.
Oh, nice. Curl too. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so just to switch to C#, it's like here, boom, I could copy this out, put it into Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, and be merrily on my way with just a couple adjustments to keys. I've got endpoints below. So they give you your endpoints right here. My key, I could copy it out. It's the same with the Azure resource key. So again, very low code. I mean, they're kind of helping do this. It gets you started really quickly. So, but yeah, fun stuff. So Okay, Abdul, any other questions, thoughts? I mean, I know there's a lot on the screen. We tried to just focus on the chat playground. There's a lot of other stuff out here, completions, DALL-E, deployments or models. I could just go into at least the model and say, from this perspective, we were using GPT-4, but here's how I can kind of say, this is what I want to use for this system. Or I could create my own custom model too. So I could actually take this, create that custom model based on training from the documents and letters that I'm getting to. So
yeah, I know a lot of people did not have access to GPT-4 initially, but then they're starting to get access, and because that's the latest one, right? Like it had the latest data. The
yes.
GPT-3 didn't have the latest data, and people were struggling and say, hey, when we do searches or when we do something, it doesn't go back enough. So I think that's the game changer, GPT-4 now, that you can do searches for, you know, now for a lot of new data as well. So what was your experience in that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna pause for 1 second and say, so back to where we started at this session of going out and applying for Azure OpenAI. Do not forget, I think still to this day, you have to apply to two different things. So you have to apply for Azure OpenAI, and to your point about getting GPT-4 access, you have to reapply with your tenant for GPT-4 access. So there's two pieces. Don't just think you can come in and say I'm getting access to Azure OpenAI and I've got all the models. That's not yet the case. So there's still, I believe, still two applications you need to go through. I'll be honest, the Azure OpenAI team, they've been fantastic responding. I know some folks have had, a couple weeks or whatever else, but I'm betting they probably had somewhere between, 750,000 and a million requests for this stuff. So a lot of work, a lot of stuff that they, kind of been running through, but their team's been fantastic with responses, at least from my aspect. I did it for my tenant, and for my work tenant, it was a span of like 3 days turnover. So, and that was a few months ago. But good question.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people were saying about GPT-4. But and my understanding is based on the models, the pricing is going to be different as well, right?
Oh
So
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
that's
The
what you should realize as well, because once you move to GPT-4, the pricing might shift, and so don't be surprised on that one as well.
yeah, it's a larger, basically it's a larger token space too. So yeah,
Exactly.
much larger. But all right. So with that said, honestly, this has been a blast. Again, thank you to the organizers of Festive Tech Calendar. You guys rock. Really appreciate this platform every year. So much great content. I remember a few years ago where there was just one a day, and now we've got like 3, 4, maybe even 5 a day. So keep it up. If you like what we put together, just that humble reminder that we were in those shoes too. We were a little nervous, didn't want to put our faces out there, but we found a way to do it. We had some fun with it. Hope you enjoyed the session. Abdul, thank you for joining from over the pond. Yeah, just say, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year to everybody out there. And again, hope you enjoyed this content. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Great.